We always know which is the right way and which is the bad way. The bad way sometimes feels better, so we may choose that way and justify it by rationalization in order to make ourselves feel better about the bad that we did. Isn't that the way we all do things? Even if we do something wrong, we know we're doing something wrong, don't we attempt to rationalize it in our own mind and to our friends to justify what we're doing? So I believe it's a great fallacy to set out to brand those whom we disagree with as being evil people. The result of their actions we may perceive to be evil. We may perceive it to be bad, but I guarantee you those people don't see it that way. You see, nobody gets up in the morning and sets out to do evil. Nobody consciously does that. I've never met any person in my entire life who said, I'm evil, I'm going to do evil things, I like to do evil things, I want to do evil things. They don't exist, in my knowledge. And when we present ourselves to them in that light, we're good and they're evil. Do you think we have a chance of getting them to listen to us? Not on your life. It's not going to happen. So I think we have to change the way we talk. We have to talk to them in a different manner. I've learned some things, and I think these things need to be passed on to you. And I think you need to start examining yourself, your agenda, your mission. Who are you? What are you about? What do you believe about America? Is it true? Are you helping to divide us more? Or are you helping to bring us together? Do you really understand what this country is all about?
They mean maybe the unknown planet, but it's also the 10th planet. They call it Nibiru, which means planet of the crossing, and the ancient symbol was the cross, not from Christian times, but from 6,000 years ago. And they say that this planet, the 12th member of our solar system, has a very large orbit of 3,600 years, and every 3,600 years it comes between Mars and Jupiter close to us. And it is then, they said, that people that look like us, not with little horns or green, people that look like us, started to come between their planet and Earth about 450,000 years ago. Why do they look like us? We look like them. Because if you know the Bible, engaged in genetic engineering and mixed their genes with the genes of Homo erectus. We can use various scientific terms, but let's say with early hominids to bring about Homo sapiens, us.
You know, who would have thought that talking about the evolution of man and creationism and Darwinism, I mean, I got calls for days after you were here. This really piques people's interest. Well, let's start with that, because most people either fall into the category of thinking that, creationism, God created the earth and man, or Darwinism, we all sort of evolved from lower life forms. And your research shows, in your opinion, that neither one of those are true.
Right. I've done some extensive research as far as humanity goes. At around 4 million years ago, something appears called the Australopithecines. We are told that we humans evolved from these creatures called Australopithecines that later evolved into something called early Homos, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and that means man in scientific terms. Neither of those look anything like us. We've all seen the skulls and the body parts in National Geographic. They don't look anything like us. They have no foreheads. They have big brow ridges. They have large, round, nocturnal night vision eyes. They have big, wide noses. Mouths stick off their face, no chin, long arms that dangle down to their knees. In no way do they look human. So anthropologists don't argue the point. They say, you're right, there's nothing that looks human in the so-called pre-human fossil record.
Where the missing link comes
exactly,
in, there's something between pre-human man and...
They say we're going to find someday something that is going to indicate a transition from these creatures that existed to man, which looks nothing like them. Humans have no place in the natural flow of life on Earth. So then you have to ask the question, where did we come from? And in part 4 of the book, I deal with that, and I believe that the Sumerians, the ancient Sumerians, and what they had to say about it are correct. And what they say is that there's another planet in our solar system that was captured by our solar system as the solar system was forming. It is not in a counterclockwise circular orbit like the other natural planets. Because it's captured like a comet, it has a clockwise elliptical orbit of 3,600 years. On that planet, the Sumerians say, lives a superior race of beings known as the Anunnaki. They call the planet Nibiru. They called the people the Anunnaki. They're called the Anunnaki. The Sumerians, the first great culture that we have on the earth 6,000 years ago, right out of the Stone Age, possessing over 100 of the first that we attribute to a high society. They're the very best of the ancient cultures, preceding and better than the Egyptian, Greeks, and the Romans. In their writing, first writing, of course, they said that there's another planet in the solar system that they called Nibiru that was captured and moves like a comet in a 3,600-year orbit. Our own astronomers know it's out there. They call it Planet X. It has gravitational effects on the outer planets. They can't find it because it's so far out. Exactly what the Sumerians say.
The superhuman race lives.
They say that on that planet the Sumerians do live another culture called the Anunnaki, and that in our past, in the past of Earth, at around 400,000 years ago, they came here to work, to do a job, which I go over in the book, and while here they decided to create a slave, to genetically engineer a slave, using the creature of Earth as a genetic base to make the new slave and servant better adapted to the planet than they were.
That's us?
That's us. Basically, the Anunnaki said in their writings that the Sumerians left behind, we shall make the Adamu. They called their slave servant Adamu plural, which comes down to us in the Bible as the Adam. We shall make the Adamu in our own image, after our own likeness, word for word in the Bible, and they did that. So
no,
we
look like that we, the modern race of people, were genetically engineered by this superhuman race of aliens that came from other planets.
And that we look like them. In the cylinder seals that we have, the 5,000 or so cylinder seals that we have out of the Sumerian culture, depicting gods and humans on the same cylinder seal at the same time, they always look the same.
And this is why we only use 10% of our brains.
They genetically engineered our brains. They gave us their bodies. We have, you will notice, we have tremendously reduced strength from primates. If we descended from primates, where did our strength go? Every primate is 5 to 10 times stronger than we are, pound for pound. How did we lose 2 chromosomes? All primates have 48 chromosomes. We have 46. That is an awful lot of DNA. Where did it? If you read the Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki flourished from around 400,000 years ago, and by the way, they called where they live in the Tigris-Euphrates Valley.
It's a crescent moon because it represents the female goddess in the occult world. At the bottom of that shield, of that lunar moon, you will see the hour. And it's very obvious. Once you take a good look at that part of the crescent moon, and it is the same Illuminati owl that is being worshipped at the Bohemian Grove in California by those members of the Bohemian Grove, where presidents, premiers, kings and queens and heads of nations throughout this world have met. You can tell just by looking at this photo, that is a 40-foot owl. It is made out of oak, and that the worshipers are surrounding that fire pit around that altar, which is easily reflected in the lake around them. This is definitely the owl of the Illuminati.
Lift up your heads, O ye trees, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting spires. For behold, here is Bohemia's shrine, and holy are the pillars of this house. The owl is pillars of this house. Breathing fire shall not fear.
You will overcome darkness. You will be enlightened.
How do we penetrate years, centuries of historical distortion to find original truth? Tonight, this will be our quest.
They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies. It's all bullshit. Everything you believe is a lie. Howdy. It's control of your brain. Open your mind. Don't let them control you. They will indoctrinate you. Don't believe their lies.
Sudo se budo se naranjana se Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svavanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svavanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svavanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svavanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svapanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svapanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi Sudosi budosi naranjanasi Samsaramaya pariyajitisi Samsara svapanam chajamohat nidram Najanma mrityur traisat svarupi You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. You are forever pure, you are forever true, and the dream of this world can never touch you. So give up your attachment and give up your confusion and fly to that space that's beyond all illusion. Sudo se budo se naranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara swapanam jaja moha nidram na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara swapanam jaja moha nidram na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi. Sudo se budo se naranjana si samsara maya pariyajite si samsara swapanam jaja moha nidram na janma mrityor trisatsvarupi.
Beautiful song. Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Hope everybody's doing good. My name is Shay Bernhardt. I am the manager at here at BrooklynStation.com, where you're seeing and hearing this right now. As far as if you're on MySpace or Facebook, you can tell I'm old. If you're on Facebook or any of the social media, it is highly recommended that you go to BrooklynStation.com, as the social media have a tendency to mute things, even though there's no licensing issues, they still mute stuff. So if you want an uninterrupted program, it's best to go to our website. Besides, we don't own Facebook. We do, however, own our website. So support BrooklynStation.com, please. I will do the disclaimer that any opinions expressed thereof during this show are strictly and purely the opinions of the person doing the show. They have no reflection whatsoever on the opinions of this station or any of its affiliates. So that's to say, basically, the station is not responsible for the opinion of those that are doing the program, which would be me, Infinite Sorrow, the artist, or hey, he has the heart of the bear, shaman. Take your pick. I wear a lot of hats these days. Now we'll have to go on a little review here, because last week I took a little bit of time off. I'm still working on the setup here, because I got to set up the studio downstairs. I should have that going by next week. I'm still trying to get Mac and Windows to play together nice, and it seems like the longer you mess with it, the less nice they play together. Of course, nothing ever plays together nice these days, so it's a good thing. I like a challenge. Anyway, yeah, that's enough on that. I mean, everybody got their own problems, right? So let's dig into what we're going to discuss tonight. Now, last week I left off, I was discussing basically universal principles, which are, I use that word for basically principles that tend to be taught in most of your faiths, which is, if you remember correctly, in episode 2, I was able to put out a pretty good argument that all faiths actually stem from one place, and that civilization is a heck of a lot older than 5,000 years. Now, before going into all the review and stuff, I think that'll get pretty long and involved itself, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I left off in the middle of that because it's like it takes a minute to describe, to go in depth, and I didn't quite have enough time to finish. So on this show, we're gonna start all the way over from the first one, and we're gonna go through them. There's really only there's 8 principles, and there's one prayer, which it has some of the best principles I've ever heard in my life. It's one of the most beautiful prayers I've ever heard in my life, and it is actually Christian, Catholic nonetheless, I believe. But the principles outlined in it are very universal, and I highly recommend following them. Now, in my personal experience, what I found is that, it's like I was raised with a lot of erroneous beliefs about myself. And due to these erroneous beliefs, I tended to, I tended to place limitations on myself. And I went through a period of crisis that was a heck of a crash and burn. And, it got bad enough to where, it's like I had the day of my death planned, but I got distracted by something else, fortunately, and made it through that. And the way I made it through that was, at the time I was using drugs and alcohol to hide from my feelings, which that never seems to work. I mean, it seems to at first, but then everything just goes bad from there, right? Kind of like throwing oil on a frying pan fire or something. But what it boils down to is I sat down and I started going to 12-step meetings, and honestly, one of the purposes of me sitting and talking to everybody here is that, it's not only that we have, like, several thousand years worth of disinformation, which we're going to go into that a little bit on this episode after the principles, but we'll get into it more on the next one, a little bit more in depth. It didn't really hit me all at once, but once I sat down and did like a 4th step, which is, for any of this familiar with it, it's sitting down and doing a fearless moral and searching moral inventory. Now, what that really boils down to is sitting down and taking an objective and honest look at yourself, anybody that hasn't actually sat down and taken an honest and objective look at themselves and shared that with another person, as an old timer one time put it, you think you know yourself. No, you don't. And so what I find is that, it's like there's a lot of confusion these days because we have what is called an integrated society now. I mean, we used to have these societies, these cultures that were basically isolated and in their own little, in their own little world. Now we got globalism, everybody's traveling everywhere, communities are mixing, races are mixing, yada, yada, yada. Good thing. Together we are greater than the sum of our parts. But on the other hand, back in the day, that was, you pretty much stuck around your culture because everybody else was enemies, right? So the nice thing is, there was a point in time where America pretty much capitalized on the fact that we were a melting pot, and over the past couple decades, the media has kind of really driven a lot of wedges in between us. And I've of course outlined specifically why that is and what they're doing with it. But it's sometimes it's shocking to see how erroneous my beliefs still are to this day. And that was back in when I sat and did that and really realized how erroneous my beliefs about myself were. I started applying that skepticism to everything around me. And the more skeptical I became, the more the pardon the word bullshit started to peel away off of these turds that they've been selling us our whole life. Excuse me. Especially the study of history is becoming I've kind of gotten used to the whole blowing the feet out from underneath me thing of, wow, that's completely different than what we've ever been. That's completely different than what I grew up believing. I kind of got used to that just looking at what I believed about myself. And this is kind of an important part of it. And this is one of the reasons why I'm going here with this, as far as principles versus, say, morality goes. Now, these erroneous beliefs I was finding about myself, some of them, it's actually a lot of the ones that limited me and were really giving me problems, like the whole sticks and stones may break my bones things. Don't believe it. The power of the word is far more damaging. Beat me with some sticks and stones. I'll go to the hospital. I'll heal. I'm good. The word, on the other hand, would like to about killed me because, that's really what I ended up digging my way through, is these beliefs that I had been given to me, that I had taken unto myself between the ages of like 5 and maybe 12, 13 years old. That's about the ages when they say we form our like beliefs about ourselves as far as how we relate to the world. And of course you hit the teen years and you start getting into your identity and all that, right? Now there was a point after that when I started to realize my potential, and I got kind of upset because it's like I grew up with these limitations placed on me by a bunch of people that it's like they had their own issues. They said that what they said for whatever reasons, and I took it to heart to be true. And some of the stuff that was said, they said to me that I took to heart to be true, was decidedly untrue when I sat down, pulled it out, and looked at it. So I took over the next. I mean, I'm still doing it. I still have to pull stuff out and look at it and go, man, this is BS, or man, where the hell did I get this? Get rid of it. The thing is, you can't just leave a void. You have to have something to replace it with. If I take basically my core beliefs are what are more or less, I guess the word would be the skeletal structure of my belief system and the way I interpret what I perceive in this world. So I can't just leave a void, because then, it's like I'm like, that void could get filled with anything. And how do I, it's like when core beliefs are formed, I mean, sometimes I find these beliefs that sank in deep that I'm like, how the hell did that get there? So it's good to have, if I'm gonna sit there and rip all these programs out of my system, I still have to have some type of program to replace it with. And that's basically what principles are. It's like I've heard it in meetings, as a matter of fact, where somebody said religion is for people that are afraid of hell, and spirituality is for people that have been to hell. And it is kind of like that, because I mean, I never got into religion because religion it has people that are very religious have a tendency to follow it in a way where a lot of times you'll be talking to them, and then instead of talking from the heart, all they're doing is quoting from a book. And it's like, and then nowadays it even unnerves me a little bit more, because they're quoting from a book that they haven't questioned or been as skeptical enough to dig into, so they don't even understand what they're quoting. You remember in episode 3, I spoke of what the Hermeticism and what the Freemasons and some of your other schools of mysteries and your secret societies. They basically they have their steps, right? So like for Freemasonry, you get up to, what is it, 32nd or 33rd. You got to go through. You got to work your way up there. And part of working your way up to enlightenment, and again, we discussed the fact that secret societies were necessary in order to try to preserve information and knowledge that basically there was a concentrated attempt to demolish it and wipe it from the face of this earth from roughly about somewhere shortly after 4000 BC on. So basically, as things that once we start going through the Sumerian histories, you'll see that at about 4000 BC, things started to kind of change. And the dramatic change was about 600 BC, because that's when basically the administrators of this earth from Nibiru supposedly packed up and left, except not all of them left, and that's kind of one of the problems we have today. In the start of it, it was talking about the owl, which, the secret society of the Grove, I forget the name of the Grove, and the Bilderbergs, these are a secret society that have used other secret societies to keep themselves secret, but they're not part of it. So there's nothing wrong with the Freemasons. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Freemasons' belief system and what they're striving for, it's actually a very beautiful thing. They're very focused towards knowledge. And, people talk about the occult, but, it's like if you even use the word occult, to be honest, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. It's not a cult. Nothing drives me more crazy than hearing somebody refer to anything as magic. You know, magic is what you do with cards. You go watch magic in Las Vegas. If you're digging within yourself and trying to develop a strong relationship with the divinity and trying to reach enlightenment, nothing involving that is magic. It's higher sciences. You know, the more I've studied, the more I find that what it boils down to basically is there's a whole hell of a lot going on that we can't perceive, and it's going on right here around us, amongst us, within us. You know, the realm of the spirit is right here. I mean, it's constantly interacting with us. We just can't perceive it because we haven't reached that level of perception yet. Now, there are some religions or faiths left that do teach that ladder of consciousness, but it seems like we've kind of really lost that ability to look within ourselves. And you know, I don't know about the rest of you. I guess I was born stubborn, rebellious, and a skeptic. Because I mean, I remember at 5 years old, I was listening to what was really supposed to be going. What the adults told me was what was really going on here, and even then, I knew it was bullshit. You know, and here I am at 54, and I'm like, man, it's like, I don't even anymore. I don't hold on to anything that I know that facts prove to be BS, because I've gotten to the point where it's just like, well, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You know, and I've had to throw out pretty much everything that I've ever been raised to believe. And over the past 20 years, I've been wandering from one end of this country to the other, traveling, because I'm kind of a hermit and a nomad, a gypsy. And one of the most common things I hear from people that are supposedly successful is that, you know, it's like they reach this point where they get what I like to call the grand disillusionment. Now, the grand disillusionment is basically that belief, if I only had more money, if I only had enough money, if I only had money is an illusion, folks. And not only that, but it's been weaponized against us. We will eventually go into why the economy of America and how it is designed to fail, and it will soon. It's not far off. I mean, things are heating up pretty quick. Our economy is fairly close to a collapse. If it doesn't collapse within 5 years, I'd be amazed. 10 ain't no way. You know, I'll show you. We'll discuss the economic budget here pretty quick, just to give people an idea of what the macroeconomic and economic situation is. But it's been pretty grim reading for the past 10 years that I know of. And that's the Congressional Oversight Budget. They do it every year. I highly recommend reading it because, you know, it basically gives you a pretty good idea of what is coming as far as the economic situation in America. And America's economy is collapsing. I mean, it's designed to collapse. It's going to collapse. Nobody's doing nothing to it. To do anything about it. As a matter of fact, the guy that's in charge of the economy, when he's in Congress and he's talking, everybody leaves because they don't want to listen to it. Now, he cares. They don't. So when you go vote, maybe you ought to look at who's listening to the Congressional Oversight Budget, because, you know, I mean, it's extremely grim reading, but it's not beyond repair if people actually do something about it. But we don't, because we pretend like this joke of an election they're having is real, you know, even though, I mean, it's like Vince McMahon could write a better plot than this one. I mean, it's pathetic. It's worse than the last one and the one before that. I mean, pretty soon they might as well just have it as wrestling, you know. I mean, it's idiocracy at its finest, you know. It's a joke. Anybody that still believes that it's real, you know, I feel sorry for you, because it is. It's a joke. They're pulling your leg. There's no Democrat. There's no Republican. All right? That's an illusion. That's a game they play. Now, there are factions. And when we get into discussing the Sumerian histories, you'll find it kind of surprising, because the Sumerians left quite a bit of writing, and what they call it mythology, even though it's like everything that they write is very, very precise and specific. They were very, very, very diligent record keepers. So it's kind of weird that somebody would have a mindset where on one hand they're going, oh, well, these guys, it's like they got all these details, every down to the last little detail you got. I mean, we have years of of tablets describing, how many times they took a poop every day practically. But the instant they start talking about anything that falls outside of our normal experience, they call it mythology, which is doubly bizarre in today's technology because these guys are talking about rocket ships. They're talking about genomes. How the hell did the Sumerians know about a genome? How did they even know what a genome is? How did they know the construction of DNA? It's like, it's ridiculous. So that's basically, that's why I'm giving the principles, is because in order to basically break free of all this and move on with your life and start climbing the ladder of consciousness, one of the things you have to do, and there's no getting around it, is you have to get your karma straight. And the only way to get your karma straight is to basically flow with it instead of fight against it. Now, there's a statement the Swami, I forget his name, talked about when you awaken your Kundalini, you burn your karma. But it's like, over time, as I'm digging through all these different teachers, it's like I find some are a little off, and in that respect, I think he's off. You don't burn your karma; you serve your karma, one way or the other. I mean, for those of you that are considering suicide, don't do it, because you come back probably with a little bit greater disadvantage in order to help you learn what we're here to learn. One of the things, Manly P. Hall, which I highly recommend his books, in his first book, The Initiator of the Flame, one of the things he speaks to, or about, pardon me, is what an initiate has to go to. And it's based on this, again, ties into your secret societies, because of Initiated of the Flame, of course, refers kind of to the Freemasons. And again, their belief is very beautiful, in the essence of it. Yes, selfish people have used that for their own selfish ends, but show me something that selfish people haven't used for their own selfish ends. That's what I thought. So basically, let's get down to the principles, and then we'll play a little bit of music for a minute, and then we'll start discussing the Sumerian histories. One of the ones I'm wanting to take you through is it's a what's the word for that? It's basically a translation done by Zachariah Sitchin, which I highly recommend his books. God rest his soul. The guy, he was very skeptical. There's of course criticism for his work, mostly because it falls outside that. We're only 5,000 civilization popped out in over 5,000 years ago, and that's all there is to it. There's nothing else to find, which kind of funny, because Göbekli Tepe is, at least 16,000 years old. I think they got now. I'm actually really wanting to talk about that and get into that eventually, but that right now is kind of hot. I mean, they're in the middle of the excavation now and finding out new stuff every day. So we'll wait for a second on that one. But it's a very interesting excavation in that it's public. They've got a lot of stuff over on the eastern side of the world that they pop up with that we never hear about, that's even older than Göbekli Tepe. But in this one, the lids, the cat's done got out of the sack, and there really ain't nothing they can do to shut that one up. That genie's out of the bottle. Now, interesting enough, all right. So now, last week I started with the first 5 principles. Now, one of them is one that I kind of paraphrase. The rest of them, all from other teachers that I've picked up either from reading or from my actual travels. The first one is just what we've learned through what everybody should have picked up from the books on civilization and the mythology they teach in school, if nothing else. And that's, only those willing and able to defend their way of lives will be free to pursue that way of life. Now, what that means basically is that's saying that all the other principles basically don't produce conflict. This one says that you have the right to defend yourself against those that would take your style, your way of life away. And I'm a peaceful person. I abhor violence, and yet, I've always been willing and able to defend my way of life. And thus I have, for the most part, continued my way of life. And that is the thing. I mean, I've gotten my ass handed to me a few times, as have we all. But for the most part, it's like I don't have, it's like I've been able to go on about my life until I come, until you run into the law. They have like all the resources in the world, But I mean, if you just hand them your ID and shut up, you're a lot more likely to live. So remember, exercise your right to remain silent. So that's basically the only principle that allows for violence. And that's because, it's like the peaceful cultures of this world have been wiped out. They say it's natural selection, and that's probably the case. So the first principle is, of course, CYA, cover your ass. Then we get into the 4 agreements. Now, these are Toltec teachings. I learned them from a book by Don Miguel Ruiz, which eventually I will put a recommended reading or a bibliography and such, so that people that want to dig deeper can maybe, look at some of the stuff I've looked at. It's kind of an extensive list, to say the least. But if you like to read, there's plenty of material there for you. But the 4 agreements were basically pretty simple, and I adopted them pretty much from the moment I learned them, because of their simplicity and yet the depth of guidance they offer. I mean, they're actually a pretty good compass in today's world, considering the Toltec predate the Aztecs and the Mayans. They obviously they were pretty sharp. So. And these 4 agreements basically keep you from building up more karma, so you can proceed to serve out your karma and get the hell out of here. All right. So they make a good moral compass. And then they're pretty simple. Be true to your word. That's to yourself and to those around you. The reason why this matters is because it's like if you're true to your word, then you're not building that, you're not putting out that energy of deception. B, if you're true to your word to yourself, then that means you're reflecting upon who you are, and you're accepting yourself, both your light and your darkness. It's important that we learn to face our darkness and have the strength to face our darkness. And most people that I talk to in my travels they'll do anything to get out of looking at themselves in the mirror. And I mean, I kind of feel for them, because every school of thought on the higher sciences I've ever studied insists that self-reflection and coming to terms with that darker nature inside of us is critical to getting the hell out of here. So, it's like you can run for however many lifetimes you want to run, but there's only one way to get out, and that is through. This is a rite of initiation. Now, from where I'm sitting, basically, this test is spiritually. This whole thing is basically teaching us spiritually to put the square peg in the square hole. I mean, this is what we learn here, is that freaking basic, but we're not getting it. And the reason why we're not getting it is because we're being misled, which basically can trace back to apparently apparently, the real loss of our heritage stems from about 400 BC, give or take, and that was the last time Nibiru passed, and the gods left, which would be the Anunnaki. Now, the next we'll move on to the next principle before we start talking about the Anunnaki, because it really ties into our history quite a bit, needless to say. All right, the second principle is always do your best. Always do your best, because then you don't have to offer excuses. You don't have to sit there and, as the guy at the start of this was talking about, produce those rationalizations for why you didn't, why blah blah blah. You can be honest with yourself and say, man, I did the best that I could. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to any endeavor one tries, and that is, there's no such thing as failure. There's only results. So, I mean, rip out the concept of failure out of your belief system and replace it with that one. You'll thank me, because then that means basically everything that happens, if you look at it objectively and say, you know what, I could have done this differently right here, and I would have got different results. By doing that, you take your karma and basically everything you go through becomes either a success or a learning experience. And if you learn something, that's basically squeezing value out of it. So, we've touched a little bit on the whole qualification, good, bad, evil, indifferent, and all that, and how that's just relative to how a person chooses to perceive an event, because an event is just an event. Your perception is really what determines whether that event has some type of intrinsic value to it, or if it's just a meaningless calamity. So long as a person decides that they're the victim of circumstances, however, there's absolutely nothing that they can learn from it, because a victim is powerless. Thus, why the media and the way they like to portray so many different, cultures, lifestyles, and peoples as victims really upsets me, is because by portraying them as victims, you're stealing their power from them, especially using the tricks and stuff they use in propaganda to program people's mind to believe it. I mean, I sit there and had conversations with people that, it's because the media has said that they don't have opportunities. They don't even look. I mean, it's so concrete in the mind that you can't get them to look. I mean, literally, they will not look, even though, I mean, at that point, if they did look and find opportunities, of course, then they'd have to take a moment of self-reflection and go, wow, I pissed that off. I could have done that a long time ago. I've been there. I've done that. I've seen it. I've definitely had to come to terms with how much of my own potential was wasted just by a lack of accurate information about who I am and what I was capable of. So basically, be true to your word, always do your best. Those two together makes it so that you start to reach and realize your potential. And on top of that, never take yourself nor life too seriously, because God doesn't. I'm here to tell you, what happens here doesn't matter. Nothing here matters. This is just we're 15 billion years old. That's how long our energy has been tooling around this universe that we know of. All right. It's like nothing that happens here matters. All this is it's a rite of initiation. And the process of initiation basically is to push you to the limit to see if you're ready to take that next step, to gain that next level of understanding. So basically, I mean, I don't know how many times you hear people going, I just want to be happy, but happiness isn't what we're here for. We're not here to be happy. We're here to be challenged, and it's like, and the concept of failure pretty much means, it's like you're not gonna make those challenges because you're gonna quit thinking that you're a failure. Yeah. And I know there's times I feel like there's times I regret being as stubborn as I am, but I'm stubborn. You know, my mama, I mean, she gave that to me, and sometimes I don't know. Sometimes there's a lot of times I thank her for it, but sometimes I feel it's a curse because I'm just stubborn and rebellious, and that's kind of what it takes. You know, it's like if you go into if you go to a spiritual teacher and he tells you that there's only one way to understand, or or he tells you that you know you can just magically fix everything and be good and go to heaven, it's not like that. In order to go to the next level, you have to strive. And we will cover the three principles that will lead you to that, as they did me and anybody else that would follow them. And then these are universal principles. I learned them from an old Native American on a video in the class I went to, right? But first, let's get through. Okay, so never take yourself or life too seriously, because ain't nobody getting out of here alive. And as soon as you die, from what I hear, dying is the easiest thing to do. It's the getting to the next level that's the hard part. Don't die before you get to the next level. That way you don't have to come back. I hate to see people have to come back. I don't want to come back. It sucks here. There's way better things to do. Trust me. Anyway, so and then of course it's like, so you got basically be true to your word, always do your best, never take yourself or life too seriously, and the final one, live and let live. And what live and let live means is shut up and mind your own damn business. It's like it's a simple thing, but people don't seem to be able to do it very well these days, because everybody's like, basically we all live in our own world, we all perceive the world in our own ways, and we all have our dark side, and we're all struggling. So I don't see where anybody stands in a place to judge, but whatever you think is your own business. Everybody has a right to their own thoughts, feelings, and opinions, but live and let live. Do your thing, I do mine, basically. And these four principles go pretty deep, but they're pretty simple. They're easy to remember. Highly recommend ripping out the bullshit you've been taught growing up, all those moral compasses and stuff. There's too many of them these days. It's like this culture has a different morality than this one. So who's right? Who's evil? Who's good? What's bad? Take away all the judgment and just replace all that crap with principles and hold to those. And it's like your karma will start to correct out. And as that happens, then you'll find yourself going through a lot of challenges. It's not easy. I mean, and it's like, it seems like the higher up your consciousness gets, the more this realm starts to feel like a trap, and then you find yourself like really frustrated, and you got to learn how to deal with that. So it's a rite of initiation. There's no easy way out. And there's definitely there's no way out but through. Remember that. In the worst times you have, those bad times exist because wherever we're going next, we need that character strength, and we need to have that knowledge. It basically, as in the secret societies, until you go through whichever initiate ceremony you got to go through to prove that you have what it takes to reach that next level, you're not going to get that understanding because you're not ready for it. And that's what the ladder of consciousness is all about. As we go up in consciousness, from the mineral to the plant to the animal to the human, and then on to the spiritual realm, each one has more and more complicated situations you have to deal with. Like you go to the astral realm and thought becomes reality. And if you go into that realm and you haven't mastered your appetites yet, then it's like you're basically going to get trapped, because thought becomes reality. So you can indulge basically anything you want to indulge on that realm, but you're going to get trapped. And if you stay too long, then you become like the Return of the Living Dead, and you decay away, and then you're basically, who knows what happens there. I don't, but it sounds like you're pretty screwed from basically the sources I've come across. So remember, only one way out of life, and that's through. And the only way to get through is to know yourself and to actively seek to understand and develop a relationship with the Creator. Now, one of the interesting things about the Sumerians, which we'll get into, we'll touch into it a little bit, is the fact that they speak of the Anunnaki, and there is a point where the Anunnaki basically did place themselves above us as gods because they made us as slaves, and we'll get into that. But the bottom line is, even though we kind of reviewed them as gods or demigods, the fact of the matter is that in the writings that supposedly are direct from directly speaking to the Anunnaki, they believed in a greater God. They believed in the divinity. So basically, I'm not asking anybody to change their faith so much as I'm asking them to question and seek. It's like there's no infinite being in this universe that is afraid of being questioned. In fact, the divinity, as I've come to understand it, needs you to question, because it's the only way you're going to get past the bullshit and find the kernel of truth. And that's basically what initiation is about in your secret societies. And that's pretty much, as far as I can tell, that's what this is. So now let's go to what will help you and what has helped me immensely. An old Native American, I can't even remember his name. He did a thing for the white bison, and it was these instructional videos. I watched them quite a few times because there was a lot of information in them. It was recovery related. And these three principles are basically, they call them the principles of change. I call them principles of growth, because basically these three principles tell you how to force yourself to grow. And they changed my perception enough that as I've traveled, I've seen a lot of different cultures stuck in basically a situation where they're stagnant, and their belief system is so restrictive, and it basically doesn't give them an out unless they actually take and apply these three principles. So if you feel trapped, use them. All right. Maybe there are 4 principles. Not bad. Number 1, nothing changes or grows unless it strives to do so. And what that means is basically enlightenment isn't going to come knock on your door and say, "Hey, dude, let's roll." You have to seek it. You have to strive to get it, to know yourself, to reach a better understanding of the world around you, a better understanding of how it works, and a better understanding of how to develop a relationship with the divinity. Again, as I've said, there is no intermediary. Your relationship with the divine is between you and the divinity. Don't allow an intermediary. You can call the divinity by any name you want. There's a million of them. Everybody has a day. There's as many aspects to the divine as there are people or spirits to perceive it. So I don't care what you call it. I don't care. Your relationship with the divine is your business. But you can't, so long as you choose to have an intermediary standing between you and the divine light, then that's going to cast a shadow over you, and they're going to be the ones receiving the divine light, while you get what? Shadow. So seek the divinity within yourself. Basically, there's a lot of texts that speak of that, ancient ones, all the way back to the book of Enoch, which is probably pre-flood. All right, so nothing changes unless it strives to first to do so. Or if you want to apply it towards enlightenment, nobody reaches enlightenment without trying to reach it. Second, all change must be preceded by a vision. This is what understanding, knowledge, and seeking create. I fortunately, that's the one thing, I mean, it's like I may have had erroneous sources of information about me on a lot of things, but I've always had like a kind of a grand vision. As somebody said one time, it's like, man, dude, you can't possibly not have a plan. You're always trying to take over the world. And that's kind of the personality I've had ever since my first awakening, is just that I've always had this grand vision I've followed, and I'm grateful for that, because it's like when I heard that principle that in order to change, all change must be preceded by a vision, I could relate to that. And that brings us to the next one, and this one, it's something to keep in mind. It works both ways, negative or positive, as they all do. And that is, you move towards and become like that which you think about. Now, this boils down to the power, not only the power of the word, but the power of attraction, because we are electrical beings, and it's like the electrical energy that you choose to transmit or accept or whatever, deal with, allow to flow through you, is going to be the energy that you emit. So it boils down to that's one of the reasons why it's like you rarely see it. Every once in a while you'll see me complain about something, but most of the time I'm focused on the solution or what I'm trying to do, because it's like you move towards and become like that which you think about. So if I'm sitting around thinking about things that I don't like, then I'm becoming like what I don't like. And I'm not going to do that. I refuse to do that. I don't want to allow them the satisfaction. If I don't like haters, I'm not going to hate back, because then that makes me a hater. See, and then I lose the right to complain, because I'm just the same. I'm no different. I try to hold myself to a standard based on the principles that I follow, rather than the principles that another person follows, and allow them to determine how I behave. To do unto others as they do unto you. Anybody that prescribes to that, rock on with it, but just know that it's like we each have our own individual karma. So if somebody does something to me, that's on them, not me. But if I do something back, then it's like basically we both have the same karma now. Ain't nobody got no right to complain. And then when the karma smacks you back in the face, you only got yourself to blame, because just because somebody does something to you does not make it all of a sudden basically a free hit back, right? That it doesn't work that way. It doesn't expiate the karma. So if somebody kills my homie and I go and kill their homie, basically that's two wrongs, and now both, you got two people that have to start over again, and then you got two people that end up spending the rest of their life in prison and dealing with the karmic payback for that. And if you think you're gonna just off yourself in the holding cell and sit and not have to do the prison sentence, bad news. Karma follows you, man. There's only one way through, and that's forward. So if you go back, your karma still goes with you. So it's like those people that go into the schools and shoot them up and then get killed. Man, I feel sorry for you, dude, because you're not getting out of that karma. I mean, you may think death is final, but it's not. You doubt me, follow, watch these episodes and learn how to leave your body, and then go find out for yourself. That's the bottom line, So I don't know. It's all up to the rest of y'all. If y'all want to keep on coming back to this shithole and doing it over and over and over again with a little bit more challenges each time, more power to you. But I think this realm sucks, and there's like some really cool stuff going on elsewhere. So now, and that brings us to the last one, which is basically the basis for the name of this program, as a matter of fact, and that is conflict precedes clarity. Now, what that means is basically it kind of ties into there's no such thing as failure. It means basically you push until it gets to that point where something's got to give, and then just keep pushing, because once you reach that point where you feel like something's got to give, if you keep on moving forward, it will, and you'll be at the next level. If you give up, well, then you got to go through that again, no matter if it's in this lifetime or the next lifetime. I mean, there's only the ladder is two ways. You can, like, say the people that go and do the school shootings, you know, that kind of karma is going to knock you back a little bit on the old ladder of consciousness, because ignorance in its own self is, you know, the opposite of consciousness, really. And even worse, you know, willful ignorance, which drives me nuts, because, you know, that's, I mean, willful ignorance is the choice to not learn despite the fact that you have the capacity to, and that's just stupid, to be honest. You know, I mean, it's like, I don't know. You know, to me, willful ignorance and stupidity are the same thing, because, you know, it's like, if you're unwilling to learn, you can't be taught, and if you can't be taught, then, I mean, what the hell are you doing here? You might as well just, I don't know. I feel sorry for anybody that's in that frame of mind. I've been there. I've done that when I was young. I thought I knew all kinds of stuff, and, you know, now I know I'm pretty much dumber than a box of rocks, and my ignorance is towering. But, you know, I've come a long ways, thankfully, you know, and I've come to the point where, you know, it's like there's never any point where I have like a crisis of faith so much as I have a crisis of, man, this is a bitch. You know, basically a crisis of will, because it takes a will to climb the ladder of consciousness. You don't climb it sitting on your ass. It's a ladder. You gotta climb. You gotta pull yourself up, and you gotta use your legs. So those basically are the principles that I use to guide me. 8 of them. They've worked in every situation I've been in the past 20 years, and I've hitchhiked cross country. I've been in neighborhoods that people, you know, people that live in bad neighborhoods are afraid to go to, and, you know, it's like I've been safe, you know, because it's like I follow these principles, and then I find that, you know, it's like that carries its own energy. You know, it's just not creating any new negative karma, because you really, if you follow those to the best of your ability, you're usually going to avoid situations that build up more karma for you to serve out, which, if you're not building up more karma, then that means you can focus on serving out the karma you got left, letting go of all this bullshit, and realizing that you're trapped, that you have the divine spark, and we don't have to be here. And Palin, you know, the Vedic teachings that they're in India, basically, they teach that if you reach a certain point, that you don't have to die. So, you know, it's like the teachings of Jesus Christ, where he said, where you know, he came back and said there was eternal life or whatever. Whatever your opinion on that is the fact of the matter is that the people that have studied the higher sciences have known that for thousands of years. You don't have to die. But, you know, it doesn't mean you live here forever, thank God, because this place sucks. This is just the kindergarten, you know. So basically, I'm gonna play a little bit of music and take a break for a second, and we won't have much to. I'm just gonna kind of give you a synopsis of the Sumerian histories. Pardon me. I don't use the word mythology unless I'm talking about school now, but every once in a while I almost kind of slip. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, we're going to discuss the synopsis of the Sumerian history that was supposedly dictated to a scribe directly from the mouth of Enki, which Enki was basically he was the one sent to explore after the first Anunnaki left his planet, because he was exiled and ended up crash landing here. But we're going to spend a little bit of time we're going to spend the whole episode next week on basically the Sumerian histories, because they deserve a pretty in-depth inspection. And next week I'll have the screen sharing working again. It's like so that'll be an interesting one. I highly recommend tuning in, because, you know, it's like as I've been studying not only the Sumerian, but I've been studying those creation texts and of your different cultures. And I mean Vedic, Middle Eastern, Ukrainian, basically Western European, Mesoamerican. I mean, I've been studying a pretty broad category of religious and faithful teachings, and at this point, they all say the same. And it's like there's a few people that are realizing that, and there's a few people that are still clinging to that they're different, but they're all really just different ways of perceiving the same events. And once you start, the Sumerians they were pretty much the ones that actually were there and kept the records. Everybody else was basically taking their records because they knew what they were talking about, and they wrote it in a manner in which they were able to relate to, because different cultures perceive things in different ways, just like men and women do, etc. Blah blah blah. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then again, it's like over time, it kind of distorts basically the truth. So you still gotta be open to other ideas if you really want to seek. So keep an open mind, definitely. I know the lesson that taught me how to keep an open mind was I almost missed out on some of the most profound moments in my life, because I swear to God, I thought they would be lame. I was like, man, I don't want to go. Screw that. All right. And then I get there, and it's like it's a life-changing event. And after that happened enough times, even when I thought maybe something might suck, I pushed myself to go, because hell, I don't want to miss the next super profound moment in my life, because I mean, life has a lot to offer. We all know that. Some people, it's like what they value in life, I can't relate to, and there's a lot of people what they value in life. It's like I see what it's going to cost them, and it breaks my heart. That's the term infinite sorrow, because it's like I see people that, man. It's not my place to judge, and we each have to go through whatever we go through in order to reach our understanding of what it requires to move to the next level. We all have our own demons we basically have to exercise within ourselves. And exercising doesn't mean getting rid of it. It more or less means embracing and accepting, because it's what makes you a whole person, and a whole spirit. Maybe perhaps on the next level we can remove those defects of character. You never know. What I mean? It's like, and while people have traveled the waiting room, I really haven't found anybody that's actually come back once they got past the doctor's waiting room and into the main portion of whatever's next. And that's probably because it's like this is the nursery, and once you hit adulthood, you don't really spend a lot of time hanging out in the nursery, right? So that's basically where I'm at with it now. Yeah, I'm gonna play a couple songs for you guys and take a break here and cool down for a second, because it's hot in here, and then I'll give you kind of a synopsis of what the book we're going to be looking at next week is basically saying. And then next week we'll sit down and we'll take an in-depth look at basically the Sumerian creation myths, the story behind behind the Sumerian mythology, and how that connects to Mesoamerican, Vedic, and your Middle Eastern, because they all say the same thing if you're open to the message. Fact is, I was actually surprised when it's like I started to realize how much the Sumerian histories and the writings in the Old Testament actually agreed with each other. And that's given me new respect for the Bible. For those of you that that like that, are fond of that book, I used to hate it, and now I've come to understand, because Sitchin, who is the one that translated the Lost Book of Enki we'll be looking at, he actually, when I started looking at the way his translations of your original Hebrew, and he went through kind of the same thing, where it's like, he started out as somebody studying the Bible, and that eventually led him to learning how to read Hebrew. And then, it's like, as he says it in one of his books, it just blew his mind how inaccurate the translations in the Bible that are in English are compared to what the original Hebrew said. And you'll pretty much find that with a lot of the spiritual books. And actually, the more I dig out Arianist beliefs, the more I find that pretty much everything I've been taught to believe is Arianist, which is a terrible situation to be in, because it's like you really don't want to feel like nothing you've been taught is truth, but nothing really is, and it's nobody's particular fault. It's not like your parents. Well, actually, sometimes I kind of wonder. I mean, my mama was no BS, but there's a lot of things I'm starting to realize in my old age that I'm wondering if the old timers before me realized that, and why the hell didn't they tell nobody? But the truth is that you can't tell. You can only teach a student that's ready to learn, and that's what secret societies have always been about. That's what the rite of initiation has been about. It's you can't just dump knowledge on people if they're not ready to take that knowledge in. As a matter of fact, the most likely result you'll end up with is, of course, the knowledge getting rejected because their defenses come up. That's why it's useless arguing. Do not argue. Why? Because arguing is two people that have decided that they're going to be right no matter what. So you got the immovable object and the unstoppable force, and it's like it's really weird being a solution oriented person to watch people argue, because they're like not actually doing anything to solve the problem. They're just basically digging up old problems that have already technically been solved, at least I hope, and throwing them at each other like spears. It's especially bad with couples. And it's like I watch it, I'm like, oh my god, that's terrible, because nothing gets solved. It's like once something's done, let it go. It's like you pull it back up to throw it at your partner like a spear. And then it has its intended effect. It does cause hurt, deep hurt, but that deep hurt, eventually that's basically going to turn your only ally in this world into an enemy. So I don't know why you'd want to throw spears at the only person you got watching your back, when it's you and whoever you're throwing spears at against, the entire rest of the world. I mean, if you got 6 trillion people that are basically out to get you, you really should, be kind of, kind to the person that's watching your back. Because the Spartans ain't nothing compared to that, right? So yeah, be kind to your lovers. Don't argue with them. Try to focus on a solution. Arguing is just basically trying to win. And you don't have a winner and a loser in a relationship, or you shouldn't. If you do, then there's a problem. But again, everybody has their own path. If people like to be in relationships where they're constantly arguing, that's their business. I prefer to focus on a solution, because I know for a fact that you move towards and become like that what you think about. So if I'm thinking about the problem, I'm just moving deeper into that problem. Now, identify a problem. Always, and then identify that problem honestly. But if you're just focusing on the problem, then you're not going to come up with a solution. The problem magnifies in it, because you're basically just moving closer to it. Turn away from the problem, focus on the solution, keep the solution in front of you. That's your vision. Keep it there, you'll eventually reach it. Now, that's where the disinformation campaign and this psychological and neurological warfare we got going on right now really pisses me off, because basically what they're messing with is they're basically messing with the capacity of a large number of people to move on, and they're stealing their vision. And I've been in areas in this country where, you have an entire area where the people living there have had their vision blinded. And without that vision, basically all you're doing is existing. they have a couple different things that speak of that too. It's called a they got the hierarchy of needs. And they got a couple other people that did it. I was young among them. Freud, Maslow, Maslow. Who else? I forget the name of the guy that did the hierarchy of needs. But basically, that it was a pyramid, and at the bottom of it, you had your subsistence level, where basically you spend your day focusing on getting your basic necessities, the things you need. Then once you don't have to focus your entire day on keeping a roof over your head and food in your stomach, or some drugs in your veins, right? And once you have a little free time to start focusing on other stuff, then you get to a point where you start self-actualizing, and that's basically where you have enough time to actually think, why am I here? What's my purpose? Blah blah blah, and that's where you get into your goal setting and stuff, and it keeps on going up. And so when you look at a culture that's had their vision stolen, what you have is basically like, I managed to survive the Bronx and get out of there. I lost a lot of friends when I was in the Bronx, a lot of people. I don't know anybody that, you've heard me say, fuck fentanyl. Sorry about the language, but there's only one way you can say that. I hate that drug. I've seen a lot of people die on it, and some meant to use that drug, and some didn't. So it's like, I know there's a lot of people out there that have lost somebody to that, and it's like I've lost a lot of people to it. I know precisely who's behind bringing it in, because it's the same people that started the crack epidemic. It's the same people that have been doing it the whole time. And in the case of the United States of America, the CIA and our government, the ones that really make the decisions, the Trilateral Commission, yeah, those are the ones letting the fentanyl in. Those are the people killing your children, and we're allowing it. The people that are going for election, they're going to continue to let it happen. So again, I can't stress it enough. Cancel the election, man. Nobody's going to, sadly. I remember a conversation I had with somebody that really kind of, gives you an idea of the mindset in America. For those in America, for those outside of America, maybe you can relate to this because you've seen it. Hard to say because different political system. But people, basically, America's got two parties. Now we get all kinds of different people that you can vote for, but everybody only votes basically. I mean, there's a few people that vote outside of that, Democrat and Republican, but for the most part, no. And it's like one year they had a couple clowns going for it. I mean, wasn't quite as bad as this election. I mean, they really don't even try to make it look real anymore. It's obviously fake. You could see it from a mile away. It was written by Vince McMahon or whoever writes for WWE. I mean, hell, it reminds me of the old wrestling from back in the day. The plot's so thin. But that's neither here nor there. I mean, if you want to buy into that, that's all on you. It's just it's deliberate. This stuff's been planned for. I mean, they've been working on this for a long time. They don't have any respect for human intelligence at all. That's why they don't try to make it look like a real election. So for once, trick them. Wake up. Anyway, so we got this two-party system, and it's like this two-party system is. They put these jokers up, and everybody's like, well, I don't want either one of them. So I asked somebody, well, why don't you vote for somebody else? And this is perfectly what the mindset in America is, because it's funny. They said, well, I want my vote to count. And I was like, dude, if you're voting for somebody that you don't want because you want your vote to count, doesn't that mean your vote doesn't count anyway? And I got treated like I was kind of an asshole for pointing out kind of the obvious that, you know, it's like your vote only counts if you're voting for somebody that you actually want. If you're voting just because, you know, it's like it's the lesser of two evils, then what are you doing voting? I don't vote because I know for a fact that the vote's a joke. It's a fake. It never has been real. Not for a long time. And the only president I know of in the past 150 years that wasn't bought and paid for long before he went into office was Nixon. And you saw what they did to Nixon. So take that for what you will, you know, but I'm not voting. I'll never vote because there's no reason to. You know, it's a joke. It's a game. It's basically put there to make you feel like you have like some type of choice, but you don't. It's just like if you watch Mr. What's his face, the guy that's over the budget for Congress. You know, when he's in there talking about it, you know, it's like he's in there alone. You know, I mean, that's how much your constituents care about you. The economy is about ready to collapse, and rather than sit and listen to the guy that's like trying to tell them what they need to do to keep it from collapsing within the next 5 to 10 years, they leave. They do not listen to him. So that tells you I mean, you going to vote for those people again? Yeah, sadly, you will. Unless, of course, you know, you start thinking for yourself and stop listening to what they're telling you, because nothing that we are being told is the truth. It's aggravating as hell. So it doesn't look like we're really going to get much into the book of Enki, but we'll get into that next week. But I do want to take a second and discuss the prayer of Saint Francis with you for a second. But while I get my notes up here, let's play a couple songs so I can take a break real quick, and then we'll end this. Come on, baby. Let's see. There we go.
Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen. Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, Came a long way from
They don't care about you. I didn't have no time. I ain't got no reason to
Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen, Came a long way from Kane, we was dealing, got our name out the kitchen,
They don't care about you. I didn't have no time. Turn it off. Just turn it off. I'm the real thing, not like you do. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. If it don't sound right when you're digging it, just turn it off. Just turn it off. If it don't feel right when you're digging it, just turn it off. Just turn it off. Just turn it off. If it don't sound right when you're digging it.
Borrow jewels, keep playing, I still got army tools, all these goons, and guns stashed in the kitchen, in the laundry room. Why would I acknowledge you? Why? You got a team full of vanilla fools with cheap guns and borrowed jewels. Keep playing, I still got army tools, all these goons, and guns stashed in the tools. Guns and You got a team full of ninja fools with cheap guns and borrowed jewels. Keep playing, I still got army tools. All these goons and guns stashed in the kitchen, in the laundry room. Why would I acknowledge you? Came a long way from Kane, him, Dylan got our name on the kitchen, yeah. Came a long way from Kane, him, Dylan got our name on the kitchen, yeah.
Kind of funny because, well, it's not really funny, but it was like the first time I ever performed that particular tune. It was me and a friend of mine and a drummer that we had just booked that day to play a concert. It was while we were locked up. It was on the 4th of July, and that was the song we ended our set with. Yeah, it's a fairly complicated song with a lot of stress playing it live. I'll tell you what, but that was a beautiful day. It's like that was kind of one of those days where you're locked behind bars, but it's almost like you kind of feel like you're free. At the time, I mean, I was fortunate enough when I got locked up, it's like they had a lot of programming. So I was able to, I took advantage of everything and anything I could learn there. I took every program, I took every class I could, read every book I could, because I just felt like, it's like I landed myself there. There was no denying that, but I wanted to make it so that rather than taking that time from me, they gave it to me, and I came out of prison with I came out with a partial scholarship to Musicians Institute because at the point in time where I recorded this, I had never actually had any lessons at that point. Um, Fact is, by the time I got out of prison and went to music school, I was actually kind of teaching my theory teacher some stuff. I'm not sure whether the students really like the debate me and the theory teacher had on that or not, because I went to Musicians Institute rather than Berkeley, and being that I was studying like basically ethnic, traditional history, historical avant-garde and stuff like that. Musicians Institute was less the place I should have went as compared to maybe something like Berkeley or a conservatory at that point. Now it's like after I got my last couple degrees, it's like I was in just some other courses, but by the time I got done, I was looking at my guitar going, man, I can't even hardly remember how to play that thing. It's been so long since I've had time to pick it up. And that's kind of what led me to electronic music because, it's like I used to be able to play Bach and Scarlatti, Beethoven, you name it. At that point in time where I was recording, when I first started recording music, I could play classical music all day and not ever play the same thing twice. Same with heavy metal, rock. I mean, I could play for days and not even get into my own music and not play the same thing twice. So, looking at the guitar and realizing that I'd have to learn that all over again, I was like, oh God, no. But then I started getting into electronic music, which is the two songs before that one were me and I think Red Sky Lullaby was in both of them, and one of the songs I played earlier had MNG. I did a lot of work with him back before the app that we worked through when they quit. As a matter of fact, I lost 2,000 songs at least, which is kind of a drag. But one of the lessons I'm learning at this point in time in my development is that, it's like everything that I feel attached to in this realm is basically holding me prisoner in this realm. So it's like I'm struggling to try to quit smoking, nerving myself up to quit drinking coffee. Oh God, that's gonna be a nightmare for anybody that's got caffeine addiction. You know what I'm talking about? That headache. I'm just not looking forward to it. But it's like I'm kind of at a plateau where I'm fluctuating, going, man. There's some things I kind of like about life. But it's like I want to move on. I'm kind of bored with this material realm because I had kind of at least somewhat of an idea of what eyewitnesses have reported seeing on the other side, and I want to go there. I know I've developed a fairly close relationship with my creator, and it's like I'm just this place sucks. There's better things to do, so I find myself focusing more and more on digging through all this ancient knowledge because I don't have a teacher. I don't have anybody I can go ask. I don't have, and I've been facing a lot of really bizarre challenges lately. Like, I mean, this evening, it's like I had everything ready. I packed it up. I moved my stuff up here, set it up. Bam, my stuff. It's like one of the programs that I'm relying on updated automatically. It was supposed to have automatic updates shut off. And it's aggravating. So there goes my screen sharing. It's like there's two ways you can see that, and it's like I fluctuate between these two ways of perceiving such things because, it's like the mindset that I grew up with, or that was passed on to me by my peers and by the people that were supposed to be actually teaching me something meaningful, was to whimper, whine, and complain about that doesn't really solve the problem at all. What I'm looking at is it's like there's a solution to the problem. I haven't, it's like I've been going rounds with trying to get Windows and Mac to work together seamlessly for much longer than I've been dealing with it here, and it's always going to be a pain in the ass. And there's a solution to it, and I'm gonna find it if it kills me. But meanwhile, it's like the other side of that coin is the fact that if you look at this as like basically an initiation right to the higher sciences, basically an initiation to step upon the next level, get out of the kiddie pool and go hang out with the adults for a change. Then each of those challenges can be seen for an opportunity to develop a better your character more so you can get out of the kiddie pool, because I'm tired of playing in the kiddie pool. I'm going to go to the adult pool. If y'all want to hang out in the kiddie pool, more power to you. It sucks. It's like kind of like adulting blows, but would you like really go back to being in high school? Hell no. I wouldn't even go back to my 20s, 30s, or 40s. I was stoked when I hit 50 because I was like, yes, I'm on the downhill side. Except you start over again if you don't graduate. So it's like I'm in my senior year, and I kind of feel like my grades could use a bit of improvement. Kind of reminds me of back now. See, I made the mistake of taking economics before I took calculus. If you go into business or anything, if you got to take economics, take calculus first, dude. Please take calculus first, because economics the theory is easy. Trying to do the math without knowing calculus, nightmare. Don't do it, man. So I'm gonna end this on one of the most beautiful prayers that I've ever heard. It's called the Prayer of Saint Francis. If you know it, say it with me. If you don't know it, say it after me. If you don't like it, well, that's on you. As with everything in this show, it's for educational purposes only. Take what you need. Don't throw away the rest. Just kind of set it aside because the key to understanding, and basically all of your old teachings of the higher sciences make it very clear that there's a key to that you have to have in order to basically unlock understanding, and that key is understanding and experience. So basically, it's the prayer of Saint Francis. Man, it's like I've held it in my heart from the first day I heard it. Anybody familiar with it probably has too. And it's a simple one. It's a great one to end the show with. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, let me bring light. Where there is sadness, let me bring joy. Divine Master, grant that I may not seek to be consoled, rather to console, not seek to be understood, but to understand, not seek to be loved, but seek to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. I see you all next week. This is brooklynstation.com. We are, let's give you some announcements. The newsletter will be coming out tomorrow. I'll be working on that and getting the new platform up all day tomorrow. That's basically the focus of the day tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So expect a newsletter tomorrow for those of you that haven't signed up for it, for those of you that have signed up for it, those that haven't, please sign up for it. Don't forget to go to kingandqueenradio.com, or there's always the Sister Dobong, which is WVIP 93 93 935f.fm, pardon me, or sisterdobong.com. I think that one's still up, although it does take you to the WVIP site. Let's see, we're going to be in the Pride Parade. If you would like to be on that float, get a hold of us, and that the best number would either be 718-253-7273. Again, that's 718-253-7273, or 929-694-8741, which is my number, Shay. Again, that's 929-694-8741. We're looking for sponsors. We're looking for dancers. We're looking for DJs. You can have your own show. As a matter of fact, when I finish getting everything up tomorrow, you can even have your own channel if you want. We do have coming out with a new marketing for kind of a, not really so much the subscription base like the ones that drain your account, so much as with a year commitment as far as advertising or playing your music or your show goes. You get a pretty good discount because as far as business goes, I think it's better to have people that stick around than it is to have a bunch of people that come in and out the door. I like my customers to be happy and to stick around. So yeah, look for that. You notice the camera is a little bit better and everything else will get a little bit better. Or yeah. So, Pride Parade, and I will, in the newsletter, I will be posting where I will be this weekend for PR. If you'd like to stop and say hi, and we're putting together some contests to win some free T-shirts pretty soon. You can see this T-shirt. Beautiful King and Queen Radio or Brooklyn Station. So, other than that, let's see. We got what's tomorrow? Wednesday. We got DJ Boo tomorrow, and it's DJ Skate Legend Boo. So you know that one. And we got, of course, we got Sean S. Thursday, I believe, and then of course Saturday we'll have Turtle at 8 p.m. with his own show. So definitely tune in for that. Other than that, any other events, we will release in the newsletter tomorrow. So again, if you haven't signed up for the newsletter, go to our site. There should be a way to sign up on there. And we're going to start releasing that every week with the good deals for those of you that would like to come in and be on the radio, be on the show. For those of you that would like your own show, DJ a show, have a channel, have a station, whatever, we got you covered. So give us a call. You've been listening to Infinite Sorrow, Shea Bernhardt, the manager at Brooklyn Station, LLC, kingandqueenradio.com, brooklynstation.com. This is my program, Proceeding Clarity, which is based on the principle that conflict precedes clarity, and I'm here to create some conflict, not this kind of conflict, this kind of conflict, because it's basically, you know, I guess it's basically, I'm a teacher and I feel like teaching, so you get to listen. I hope everybody comes away from this with something that they can keep, because if you did that, then it's not a waste of time, and I try to make sure everything I do, I get something of value out of it. So I hope everybody got something of value tonight, and we will see you next week, same time. Let's see. Other than that, have a good evening and a fantastic week.